Vistam 151, go around.
Go around, Vistam 151.
Vistam 151, heavy, thanks. The last departure lost the wheel on departure, so we're going to have to shut the runway down. So fly runway heading and maintain 3000.
Roger, Vistam 151.
Omicron 7 heavy, we're going to have to...
Welcome to Brasher Warning, the podcast that dives deep into aviation incidents with sharp analysis, insightful discussions, and just a touch of edge. If you're passionate about aviation and love a good post-incident breakdown, you're in the right place. Before we take off, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your crew. Let's get into it.
Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a real tragedy, a tragedy that reshaped aviation safety, the collision of PSA Flight 182 and a Cessna 172 over San Diego on September 25th, 1978.
A day that will live in infamy.
Our sources for this deep dive, the detailed NTSB accident reports, paint, a really chilling picture of that morning, unveiling a complex chain of events and missed opportunities that ultimately led to the loss of 144 lives.
It's a somber reminder, of the inherent risks in aviation, even on a seemingly ordinary day.
Absolutely.
As we examine the evidence, I think it's essential to approach this with respect for the victims and a commitment to understanding how such a disaster could occur.
Absolutely. We'll walk through the timeline, the findings, the lessons learned, all with the aim of grasping the magnitude of this event and its lasting impact on air travel safety. So to begin, let's set the scene.
Sure.
PSA Flight 182.
Okay.
A Boeing 727 was on its final approach to San Diego's Lindbergh Field. At the same time, a Cessna 172 with a flight instructor and student pilot was conducting instrument approach practice in the same airspace. Both aircraft were under air traffic control guidance.
So what's crucial here is that both aircraft were cleared for a visual approach. This meant that, while they were receiving traffic advisories, the primary responsibility for seeing and avoiding other aircraft rested with the pilots.
This concept of, visual separation raises a critical question, especially considering the bustling airspace around a major airport. How much burden does this system place on pilots, particularly in an environment with aircraft operating at varying speeds and altitudes?
The inherent tension in this system becomes tragically apparent as we delve into the details of that morning. The NTSB report highlights that the crew of PSA Flight 182 received multiple advisories about the Cessna's position, acknowledging its presence, and even reporting visual contact at one point.
So they were aware of the Cessna?
They were aware, yes.
What happened next?
So here's where the situation becomes even more complex. The crew, believing they had passed the Cessna, lost visual contact. Crucially, they failed to notify air traffic control of this loss of sight, operating under the assumption that the smaller aircraft was no longer a factor in their approach.
And this seemingly minor oversight, this breakdown in communication, would prove to have devastating consequences. Did the air traffic controller have any indication that Flight 182 had lost sight of the Cessna?
So the NTSB report reveals that the controller was not informed. Instead, relying on earlier communications from the crew, leading to a critical misjudgment of the evolving situation.
The controller believed that the crew was actively maintaining visual separation. A belief that would prove tragically misplaced.
So this highlights a dangerous gap in the system. The crew believed they were clear. The controller was unaware of the changed situation. And all the while, these two aircraft were on a converging path.
Indeed. Adding to the complexity, a conflict alert was triggered at the San Diego Approach Control Facility. A system designed to warn controllers of potential collisions. Tragically, this warning was not acted upon.
If the system was designed to prevent these situations, why wasn't this alert heeded? It seems like a missed opportunity to intervene before it was too late.
So the NTSB report suggests that the controller, believing the pilots were visually separating from the Cessna based on their earlier communication, disregarded the alert. Tragically, this assumption, combined with the crew's failure to communicate the loss of visual contact, created a perfect storm for disaster. Moments later, the unthinkable happened. The Boeing 727 collided with the Cessna, resulting in the loss of everyone on board both aircraft and 7 people on the ground. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences that can arise from even seemingly small oversights in a system as complex as aviation.
The PSA 182 accident wasn't just a tragic loss of life, but a pivotal moment in aviation history. The NTSB investigation that followed aimed not simply to assign blame, but to understand the systemic failures that contributed to this disaster.
Right.
This approach marked a turning point, emphasizing the importance of identifying and addressing the underlying causes of accidents, not just focusing on individual actions.
Yeah, this shift in focus has undoubtedly had a profound impact on aviation safety.
Yeah.
By analyzing the intricacies of such a complex event, the investigation sought to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future.
Exactly. The NTSB's detailed examination revealed a complex web of contributing factors, from the inherent limitations of the see and avoid principle in busy airspace to communication breakdowns between the crew and air traffic control. These insights would pave the way for critical changes in procedures, training, and technology, shaping a safer future for air travel. So as we kind of dig a little deeper into the NTSB's findings, a particularly intriguing aspect of the investigation kind of comes up.
Okay.
Several witnesses reported seeing a third aircraft in the vicinity of the collision.
This detail has fueled speculation and debate over the years.
Right.
Could an unidentified aircraft have played a role in the tragic events of that day?
Mm-hmm.
Could it have further confused the already strained situation in the airspace?
Yeah, so while the NTSB report acknowledges these witness accounts,
Right.
it's important to, emphasize that the investigation couldn't definitively confirm the existence or involvement of a third aircraft. Their primary focus was to determine the probable cause of the accident, not to chase down every possible theory.
Right. So while the possibility of another aircraft can't be entirely ruled out, it wasn't deemed a contributing factor in the NTSB's final analysis. How did they reach this conclusion?
Right, so the NTSB conducted a thorough examination of the available evidence. They meticulously analyzed radar data, air traffic control recordings, and pilot testimonies, seeking any indication of an unaccounted for aircraft.
This sounds like a massive undertaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Considering the volume of data involved in a major aviation accident investigation.
Massive, yeah. And their analysis revealed some, important insights.
Okay.
The radar data, for example, didn't show any unidentified aircraft in the immediate vicinity of the collision.
Okay.
Furthermore, air traffic controllers reported no other aircraft in the area that could have posed a conflict.
But what about the witness accounts?
16
people claim to have seen another plane. How are those testimonies factored into the investigation?
The NTSB treated those witness accounts with great care. They interviewed each witness, meticulously documenting their location and perspective. They also carefully compared the descriptions provided by witnesses with the known aircraft operating in the area at that time.
So they were trying to determine if any of these sightings could be attributed to aircraft that were unrelated to the actual collision.
Exactly. And their analysis revealed that many of these witness descriptions were inconsistent with each other or could be explained by other aircraft operating in the wider San Diego airspace.
For example, an aircraft departing from a nearby airfield might have been misidentified as being closer to the collision site than it actually was.
Exactly. It's also crucial to consider the chaotic and traumatic nature of the event. Witnessing a plane crash, explosions, and smoke would undoubtedly create a high-stress environment, potentially impacting the accuracy of recollections.
It's a reminder that while eyewitness testimony can be valuable, it's not always infallible, especially in the aftermath of such a shocking event.
Absolutely. The NTSB did identify a few sightings that warranted closer scrutiny. One involved a Beechcraft Baron that had landed at Lindbergh Field shortly before the collision.
Okay.
The pilot reported seeing Flight 182 on fire as it descended, but this observation occurred after the impact.
So while this aircraft was in the area, it wasn't a factor in the events leading up to the collision.
Correct. They also investigated a Grumman TCAT, a training aircraft flying northbound at a higher altitude. The possibility of this being the aircraft some witnesses described was carefully considered.
Was this a potential candidate for the mysterious third aircraft?
So the NTSB's analysis revealed that the pilot's testimony and the TCAT's flight path didn't align with witness descriptions of the third aircraft being near the collision at the time of impact.
So they were able to rule out the TCAT as a contributing factor.
Right. The NTSB also considered the possibility of an aircraft operating in the area without a transponder.
Okay.
Which would make it invisible to radar.
Right.
However, this scenario is unlikely, given the controlled airspace around Lindbergh Field.
Operating without a transponder in such a tightly regulated environment would be a significant violation.
It would. And it's important to remember that while the NTSB rigorously investigated the possibility of a third aircraft, their primary focus remained on determining the probable cause of the accident based on the most reliable evidence.
So their final determination was that the actions of the PSA Flight 182 crew and the air traffic controller were the primary factors leading to the collision.
Yes. The NTSB concluded that the failure of the PSA crew to maintain visual separation from the Cessna and their failure to communicate that loss of contact to air traffic control were the primary causes of the accident.
This brings us back to the inherent limitations of relying solely on see and avoid in a complex and busy airspace. The NTSB report didn't just analyze the actions of those directly involved.
Right.
They dug deeper into the systemic issues that contributed to this tragedy.
They did. They recognized that relying solely on human observation, even with traffic advisories from controllers, was inherently risky, especially as airspace became increasingly crowded.
It seems like a system ripe for potential errors.
Yeah.
Particularly in the fast-paced environment of a terminal area.
Exactly. And the technology for radar-based separation existed at the time. The NTSB strongly advocated for its wider adoption, highlighting that radar could provide more precise aircraft positioning and tracking, reducing the reliance on human judgment alone.
So the PSA Flight 182 accident became a catalyst for a significant shift in air traffic control procedures, moving towards a greater reliance on technology to enhance safety.
It was a watershed moment.
Yep.
Prompting the FAA to reassess and ultimately revamp its approach to separating aircraft in terminal areas. The tragedy of PSA 182 underscored the need for a more robust system, one that minimized the risk of human error in an increasingly complex airspace environment.
The NTSB's investigation into the PSA Flight 182 accident didn't stop at identifying the causes.
Right.
They went a step further,
issuing
a series of recommendations aimed at preventing similar tragedy. Their recommendations targeted the systemic issues uncovered, focusing on areas where improvements in procedures, technology, and training could significantly enhance aviation safety. One of the most impactful recommendations addressed the inherent limitations of see and avoid as the primary method of separation.
The NTSB called for reassessment of its use, especially in terminal areas with high traffic density. They advocated for prioritizing radar-based separation whenever possible, recognizing its ability to provide more precise and reliable aircraft tracking.
This seems like a logical step, given that the technology was already available.
Right.
Why was visual separation still so prevalent at the time?
Well, while radar technology existed, its implementation in terminal areas was not yet widespread. The PSA 182 accident kind of became a catalyst for change, prompting the FAA to accelerate the adoption of radar-based separation.
So this tragedy, in a sense, forced the aviation industry to confront the limitations of existing procedures and embrace the potential of available technology to enhance safety.
It did. The FAA responded to the NTSB's recommendations by implementing terminal radar service areas, or TRSAs, at numerous airports across the country. These designated areas provide radar services to both instrument and participating visual flight rules aircraft, creating a safer and more controlled environment.
This essentially added a layer of safety, reducing the reliance on visual separation alone.
Exactly. But the NTSB's recommendations extended beyond just technology. They also emphasized the critical importance of clear and unambiguous communication between pilots and air traffic controllers.
This seems particularly crucial in the fast-paced and high-stakes environment of air traffic control. Where even small misunderstandings can have significant consequences.
Absolutely. They recommended standardized phraseology and protocols to minimize the risk of misinterpretations or ambiguities in communication. This focus on clarity and precision aimed to prevent situations like the breakdown that occurred between the PSA Flight 182 crew and the controller.
So they were trying to create a more robust system of communication, reducing the potential for errors.
Precisely. And recognizing that technology and procedures alone are not enough. The NTSB also emphasized the importance of enhanced training for both pilots and air traffic controllers.
This would ensure that the individuals responsible for safety in the skies were equipped with the knowledge and skills necessary to navigate the complexities of a constantly evolving airspace.
These training programs focused on enhancing situational awareness, improving communication techniques, and strengthening decision-making abilities under pressure. The goal was to ensure that everyone involved could effectively respond to potential conflicts and prevent incidents from escalating into accidents.
It seems like the NTSB's recommendations touched upon every aspect of aviation safety. From the technology used to separate aircraft to the human factors involved in communication and decision-making, what has been the lasting legacy of these recommendations?
I think the impact of these recommendations has been profound and far-reaching.
Yeah.
The PSA Flight 182 accident led to a fundamental shift in aviation safety culture, a move towards a more collaborative and proactive approach.
This shared responsibility extends beyond just the pilots and controllers,
Right.
to include the regulatory bodies,
Right.
the airlines, and the manufacturers, all working together to ensure the safety of air travel.
It's a recognition that safety is not the sole responsibility of any one individual or entity,
Right.
but a collective effort requiring constant vigilance and a commitment to continuous improvement.
The changes implemented in the wake of PSA Flight 182 have undoubtedly saved countless lives,
Absolutely.
making air travel significantly safer today than it was back in 1978.
Yes.
As we conclude this deep dive, it's important to remember that the pursuit of aviation safety is an ongoing journey. We must continually strive to learn from past accidents, embrace advancements in technology, and foster a culture of vigilance and open communication.
The PSA Flight 182 accident serves as a stark reminder that even in a highly regulated and technologically advanced industry, human error and systemic vulnerabilities can have devastating consequences. Understanding the factors that contributed to this tragedy, we can work together to prevent similar events from happening in the future.
Thank you for joining us on this solemn journey. May the lives lost that day serve as a constant reminder of the importance of our collective efforts to ensure the safety of every flight.
Thanks for tuning in to Brasher Warning. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a flight with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment or review, and don't forget to share the podcast with your fellow aviation enthusiasts. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe, and keep soaring.
American 1552, contact center 127.0.
1552, we're going to be Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. We have an engine failure. We're going to return to DFW.
1552, roger. And which runway do you need?
We'll take 18 right.
Roger, American 1552, turn right heading 020, just going to maintain 8,000.